Greetings, fanboys and fangirls, and Merry Christmas to one and all. And it's appropriate that we started with Santa and we're ending with Santas, because right now I have two naughty or nice Santa Claus figures. If you guys remember, these were put up for pre-order about a year ago on Big Bad Toy Store. Of course, these are from Fresh Monkey Fiction, which is a company that is affiliated with Big Bad, and they've mostly done 3 3/4 style figures that were more like Eagle Force and different things like that. And those always looked really cool to me, but I never actually bought any. But when they announced their Santa Claus line of figures for Naughty or Nice, it just looked really appealing, and I instantly felt drawn to them. So I've definitely been anticipating these coming out for a while. I decided to go with the two that I thought would fit in the best with my collection, which is the standard, like Coca-Cola style Santa Claus, and the Sergeant Santa Claus. And of course, with my G.I. Joe Classified collection, I thought that that would be a wise pick. I suppose that we'll start with Classic Santa Claus. That seems like the most logical choice to go with. I'm really curious about these guys because I've never had anything from this company, and it's something that really looked great in prototype form. If you're interested in these guys, I think Santa at the time of recording might be sold out on Big Bad, but they have restocked them a couple of times, so you may be able to grab one. And before we begin, please be sure to like and subscribe and comment at the end of the video. It's all I want for Christmas this year, so please make sure that you do those things. It really does help the channel grow. And again, I really thank you for a successful year here on the channel. The channel has grown so much, and it just seems like it's getting bigger and better all the time as I try to improve the videos, and I really enjoy reading your feedback, so thank you so much. With that out of the way, let's begin. In the background, you can see that Santa's already delivered a bunch of presents, so now it's just up to us to free poor Santa. Looking in the package, I really like the simplicity of the packaging. It's obvious that this is taking cues from like Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black Series and all of that. I think that that means that instantly he's more likely to fit in with more folks' collections, and I think that's a really smart business move on their part. I like the Naughty or Nice logo right here. I think that's really cool. Then at the bottom, even though I'm sure there's no reason that you might need it, there's the UPC. And on the side, we have the Fresh Monkey Fiction logo. And on the other side, we actually have a Big Bad Toy Store exclusive sticker, something you don't see very often. I do like the kind of Christmas style sweater graphics that are on each side of the box, so I think that's nice. On the back, we have just a little bio telling you a little bit about the line and showing you some of the varieties of other Santa Clauses that you can get, including one that isn't out yet, the Mall Santa, which I think looks really good and quite a bit like Billy Bob Thornton. I'm sure that's more than intentional. It's worth showing that on the inside of the packaging, you do get a cool little like snowflake backdrop. And here he is, that jolly old elf, Saint Nick Santa Claus. This is the classic version that they offer in the Naughty or Nice series. And before I forget, as we review the figure, I probably had best mention the price point for him. There's actually 2 price points in this series of figures. There's the basic figures that don't come with a huge amount of stuff, and those are right around $35, $36, and that's where Santa falls here. As for the bigger, more deluxe figures, like some of the Krampus options and things that they have, and some of the more deluxe Santa Clauses, those run right around the $50 to $60 mark. All right, so first impressions. Just got this guy out and just been posing him around a little bit, getting a little bit of a feel for the figure. First impressions are actually really good. This is a very impressive figure. I am surprised by a couple of things just right off the bat that's going to be hard to articulate unless you hold the figure yourself. Number one, it seems to be made out of some really high quality plastic. The figure has a nice little amount of weight to it. It doesn't feel flimsy, and I was really expecting something less well made because of the independent nature of the figure. I suppose that I shouldn't have judged it based on that kind of preconceived notion, but it's an easy kind of thing to assume because, you know, when you're dealing with little independent companies, you're never 100% sure that that's going to be the case, that you're actually going to get something that's really, you know, the same level of quality as a mass market release. And believe it or not, yes, this is pretty much the same exact level of quality that you would get from, say, a Marvel Legends figure. And that's G.I. Joe Classified, Marvel Legends. Other mass market kind of 6-inch figures, 1/12 scale figures, that is definitely the comparison to be made here. This isn't trying to be a Mezco, it's not trying to be a Mythic Legions or anything like that. This is like a mass market basic Santa Claus figure. And when you think about it, it's sort of incredible that nobody in the big leagues had actually thought to do this yet. I guess it just didn't go with the branding of those other lines, and so they were just waiting for someone else to do it. But it kind of seems like money was left on the table because this seems to be pretty popular so far. But let's get into it. The first thing we want to look at is Sculpt and Paint, of course, just the basic visuals of the figure. The first thing we'll definitely take a close look at is the head sculpt. So I think overall this head sculpt did turn out well. Did it turn out quite as well as the promotional picture? Not necessarily. I always knew upon seeing the initial promo pictures that that was going to be tough to reach that level of paint quality and detail, especially with how detailed, like say, the rosy cheeks were. But I think it got close. I'm overall pretty satisfied with what they got. I'm also satisfied that they decided to end up adding some extra kind of paint hits in. For one thing, they brushed in almost like a slight blonde throughout the beard that initially was not there. Kind of funny how some of the rosiness of the cheeks almost kind of leaks onto the edges of the mustache right there. So that is a little bit of an overspray situation, but it's not really a big deal. It's just one of those funny things in production. The paint is also a little unevenly applied, like on the cheek here. It's kind of hard to see, but you can almost see a slight smudging right there. But overall, it really does look nice. And unless you're taking like a magnifying glass or something, the paint applications are really pretty consistent. I think the one thing is that it's a little odd that they decided to brush in the blonde and everything in the beard, because that just wasn't an element at all of the pre-order pictures. He just had a regular white gray beard, and then the other Santa Clauses in the line also have just a regular white gray beard. So it's kind of strange that they would decide to do that. I think I probably would have preferred them to just have the regular white gray beard. Maybe they looked at it and thought that it just wasn't enough like color pop going on between the collar and the fur on the front and the beard. But to me, that would have been just a little bit more classical Santa Claus. The other thing we want to look at on the head sculpt is the Santa hat. Now this, unlike the Four Horsemen Father Christmas figure that we looked at, is a completely traditional Santa Claus hat. And it's not soft goods or anything, it's just completely sculpted. I think it's done really well. I think the one funny thing is that it's a little lighter in color than the bodysuit. Kind of hard to tell on camera, a little more noticeable in real life depending on your lighting. There's also a little bit of paint inconsistency here with one kind of bigger dark splotch. But other than that, it's really well done and highlighted well. And the color separation is really good between the white fur and the little palm at the end of the hat. Now, here's something cool. You can actually take off the hat, and it fits really well to the head, by the way, so don't be worried about that. So you can, I mean, it is on there tight without being so tight that it's going to disrupt the paint. At first, I thought, oh, I'm going to take this off and there's going to be, you know, different paint wear and weird things that have happened. Nope. The head is completely clear, which is a nice surprise because I wasn't really sure what to expect. I will say that Santa Claus has some very impressively sculpted ears. Now that's a really funny statement, right? But the truth is, this is usually the kind of thing that gets glossed over. Just sculpting good ears, I'm sure, is extremely difficult at this scale or any other. So I think that's especially impressive. I love how just consistent the matte finish is on the bald head up at the top, so that looks extra good. And moving on around to the back, we can actually see Santa's hair, which has that same kind of surprising wash or dry brush that the beard had as well. Like I said, probably not the visual choice I necessarily would have made, but it's not a deal breaker or anything. Interestingly, you can take the hat and turn it right around and it fits just as well that way. So if you would rather the palm be on the other side, you can do that. I don't think they intend you to do that, but it seems like it fits just as well. So it's really more of a case of just getting an option. So it's always nice to have options in that case. All right, moving down to the body, Santa, definitely they did a great job with Santa's physique here because he has just the right amount of bulk that you would expect from classic, I guess, Coca-Cola Santa Claus, which is what I keep saying. But that really is, you know, the visual, I think, that popularized this version of Santa in the last 100 years or so. But yeah, the arms and the chest and everything, I think that they're right on the money when it comes to the size that they should be. The belt buckle and the skirt piece looks really nice, and the transition is really good. Even though they're completely separate pieces, they look very uniform. Sleeves are good with the fur. I heard some people, they criticized a little bit of this fur and said that it looked a little too popcorny-esque. But I don't know, I really like it, and I love the sharpness of the sculpt in there. I would much rather have that than kind of a boring, generic, smooth fur sculpt. I'm also impressed by the belt texture, like the leather there. That is really nice, and the paint is really fairly straight on the belt buckle and everything. So I think overall I'm very pleased with that. Moving on down to the pants and the big boots, everything looks great. They have the appropriate amount of wrinkles and the appropriate amount of bulk there as well. And they have the big buckles on the shoes, which I think is a key ingredient for Santa. Interestingly, there is no copyright information on the bottoms of the feet. So that's a good thing, I guess, if you're going to turn them over at any point for posing. There's also no copyright information anywhere on the boots. I'm just pointing it out because it seems like kind of a rare thing. As a matter of fact, it's very difficult to find any sort of copyright information anywhere on the figure. So that is actually really nice that you don't have to worry about that at all. And usually that can be kind of an eyesore with Hasbro mass-produced figures and any number of the other companies that do mass-produced toys. So that's actually a pretty cool surprise. You know, interestingly, you may have noticed it seems like they have just applied some kind of like stopper here for where like the tail would go on Krampus. This is a really weird solution to that and kind of inelegant. I know that you're probably not going to see that very much because you have like the skirt piece. It's still weird that they made that choice. So it's strange, but hey, you know, I guess you got to do what you got to do in terms of production. But there was probably a lot more elegant solutions, and I could make a ton of jokes about that. But yeah, it's Christmas. We're not doing that. He does come with several accessories. We've got the Naughty or Nice display stand that he comes with, and I really like that. I like the cursive lettering. It looks really cool. I think the one thing that would have brought it to that next level is had this been painted right here, maybe red and green. That would have been really nice for the display stand. But other than that, it works really well. There's 2 pegs, and the feet are very tightly in there once you peg them in. And yeah, it works really, really well for 1 foot or 2. But honestly, Santa doesn't really need this, which is always a great thing because of the articulation and because of the weight of the figure. And we'll get into that later. I really like this accessory. Santa comes with a Naughty or Nice list, and I think these are great. They're probably some references in here to some of the people that worked on the figure. You know how people like to do that. I'm also really impressed by just the brushing on of kind of aging on the paper, like it's just a scroll. Of course, this is hard plastic. I do think you would probably be able to fit this right into Santa's hand, and you can just put it in there, and it's sculpted to the point where it's the perfect size to just fit in, as if he's trying to show you, so that, you know, to prove to you that you're on the naughty list. Of course, it gets a little more awkward when you're trying to figure out how you're going to have him read it. I'm not really sure what the best workaround is for that. Perhaps you'd have to do something like this, maybe. It's not as natural, but it works very well. So I think you could totally do that, and it would look just as realistic. So yeah, that works. So beyond the Naughty or Nice list, he also includes some really cool accessories. You've got a really nice little plate in the 12th scale, and it comes with a couple of cookies. The plate and the cookies are completely separate from one another, and so it's just great to have those just for 1/12th scale accessories. Santa also comes with a glass full of milk. Here's an accessory I didn't think I would get in the 12th scale, but check this out. You can actually pour the milk right out and be left with just a transparent plastic glass, and the milk is just a white plastic piece that you can just pop back in, fits right back. So you can either have him pre-milk drinking or post-milk drinking. Now, once again, they have been very careful to make sure that this accessory would fit very easily into that gripping hand right there. So I actually think that that looks terrific as he is toasting you. Not only that, but Santa Claus does include a gift box. He has to have something to leave under the tree, right? And this is painted really well. It's really well done, and I was very happy to find that, yes, You can pop it right open. One thing that I think they could have done was probably put some kind of little gift in there of something. I'm not sure what they would have done, but it's still nice that it's there. And you can, of course, put any other little kind of thing in there you want to sub for the present. You definitely could work it under his arm one way or another to get him to carry this thing. So it maybe won't look like the most natural thing, but you can definitely do it. Now, some of the other cool accessories that he comes with are actually some alternate hands, and this is actually one area where he does indeed beat out Father Christmas from the Four Horsemen, because he didn't include any alternate hands. So it's really cool just that he has open palms. He also comes with a pointing hand, so you better watch out, right? There he is, Santa Claus Judgy Edition. And finally, he includes one other alternative accessory, and that is the alternative head. It is his winking head. So all we got to do is just remove the hat, and you can see that he's got a huge ball joint for the head here, and you get a very tight and secure fit right there, and it looks really, really nice. Of course, this head has the same great level of detail and quality that the other head sculpt has. The paint job on this one looks a little bit better than my other head, with a little bit more even application right here on the cheek, and we can put the hat on that as well. So he looks really nice. While he's got the alternate head on, I'll go ahead and show you a little bit about his articulation. The head isn't really able to go up and down very much. You can go up a little, down hardly any at all because of the beard. I think that's to be expected, but of course you get plenty of left and right. It is very tight on the ball joint, but nothing crazy or anything like that. With the shoulders, you can get just a little over 90 degrees, so the range is fantastic. There's no butterfly hinges or anything in here, but it can go all the way around. You do get a rotation at the bicep. You do get just about 90 degrees right there, and that's really good for one of those big single joints. You get hinges at all the hands and rotations at the wrists. You also, at the belly here, you don't get an ab crunch necessarily, because that would have broken up the sculpt and I think made it look significantly worse. But what you do get is not only a rotation, but he's able to kind of go down and go up. So he's able to kind of go backwards really, really far actually, and down pretty far as well. So I actually think that's great. And this belt down here, you can kind of adjust it to hide anything that it might show as you put the belly back. So it works out really well. And that does mean you can get a little left and right pivot action as well. So it really does help and kind of alleviates the need for any kind of diaphragm joint. The legs are definitely going to be an interesting one, because I'm sure a lot of people looked at this and wondered, well, one of the good things is that there's some really large slits on the side. So that means that when it's time for Santa to do straight up gymnastic splits, he can totally do it. Moving forward is really good as well. I'm actually shocked. Yeah, you can practically get 90 degrees because this is so flexible and because they had that slit go practically all the way up. So good for them. This is designed really well to make sure that you can get a full range. There's also some thigh rotation. You do get single jointed knees right there that almost hits 90 but not quite. So I think that's still pretty decent for what they are. You can rotate them. The boot I don't think rotates, and you do get a really, really deep hinge at both of the ankles. And you get plenty of ankle rocker pivot, which is something I wasn't 100% sure that we would get. You can see that Santa can hold some really, really wide poses. I'm not sure what he's doing here with what I just did, but it's certainly interesting. Overall, he is really well done. I really don't have any kind of issues with the figure. I think the price is plenty reasonable enough, considering this is done by more of an independent company, and you have to take that into consideration that you're not looking at a $20 figure. This is, right around that $35, $36 mark, and it's being a store exclusive and everything, I'm sure it's produced in very limited numbers. I think by far this year especially, the biggest comparison that you're going to see, and it's kind of an unfair comparison, is with Father Christmas from the Four Horsemen. Like I said, it's not the fairest comparison in the world or anything, because Father Christmas is a like $60 figure plus shipping. So I don't think that you can necessarily, with a straight face, say that you're comparing apples to apples. It's really more of an apples to oranges. They're practically the same height, but that's kind of it. It's hard to believe that these are even supposed to be the same mythical character because they're so different. I will say that it kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for, standard Santa Claus to interact with your Marvel Legends, your Star Wars Black Series and all that, it's going to be this all day long, of course. But if you're looking for that more artistic slant for your figure, for that kind of Mezco-esque quality to it, and you're a big Mythic Legions fan, then it's going to be this one. Of course, cost comes into play, and even though you don't get near as much stuff with this guy, it's still, I think, comparable to look at these. It's really not one being a better deal than the other. This is completely justified for the $60. You get so much stuff, so many premium items, soft goods galore, and this is an extremely solid figure with an alternate head, several fun accessories, and it's almost half the price, almost. And I think that that's very comparable between them. So definitely, I think either one is good. It's not a question of which one you should get. It's just more of a question of what you're after. And if you're like me, hey, get them both. As I was saying earlier, he goes well with all of these standard 6-inch toy lines that we all like. Of course, Luke figures are usually kind of smaller in Star Wars Black Series, so I think that looks, okay. I think he does look a little small compared to Santa Claus, who looks kind of like a behemoth in comparison. Here I am as a Ghostbuster. This gives you an idea of what the Plasma series looks like. And again, I'm looking a little smaller compared to big Santa Claus right here. If you want G.I. Joe classified figures to interact with Santa Claus, then here is Duke. And this is a little bit, I think, more reasonable. He's just about the perfect size for classified. And to show you a larger classified figure, here is Sergeant Slaughter, and I definitely think that that's the right size as well, considering Sergeant Slaughter was kind of like a behemoth in the show. If you want him to go along with your Mezco figures, just as a goof or whatever, then here's Christmas Gomez. Now, Christmas Gomez gives kind of an unrealistic representation of Mezco figures because his head is so large, but I think overall they look pretty decent standing side by side. For a much better representation of what Mezco scale is really like, then here is John Constantine. And this is actually really good. Very comparable scale. They've done a good job of picking a scale that would work with the maximum number of lines, and just for good measure, here is Japanese Spider-Man from Marvel Legends. Just to show you that yes, indeed, this thing kind of thrives on being a Marvel Legends Santa Claus, and I think it fills that role really nicely because you can see that the scale is just right on. And yes, if you want him to fight Krampus, you totally can. And it looks great together. Of course, it wouldn't be a comparison segment for me without comparing him to a Masters of the Universe Classics figure. And here we are. We have Filmation He-Man and Santa Claus. I think that's about right, considering He-Man is some kind of bulked out barbarian that's supposed to be huge. So I actually think that's pretty decent in terms of scale as well. All right, friends, I surely hope that you've enjoyed this review of classic Santa Claus right here. Be on the lookout for another Santa Claus review. This time I'll be reviewing the Sergeant Santa, and I can't wait to show you a little bit more about him. I definitely suggest this figure if he comes back in stock on Big Bad anytime soon. I do know that they have a pre-order up for a reissue of him that will be out next year, so that's always an option if he doesn't come back around this year, and these did ship in time, obviously, for Christmas, so that's a great thing. All right, guys, well, Santa has to get back to work, a lot of houses to visit, and I hope you guys have a very blessed holiday, and I hope you have lots of health and happiness. And as always, God bless you and yours. Comment, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.